Yes, people, how's everyone doing? So, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about probation, exposing the probation service, because anyone that's ever dealt with probation will know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this video has been a long time coming. This video, if I actually made this whilst still on the IPP license, I would be recalled for it. And that is the sad state of affairs that's happening with the probation service. But what I will start off by saying about the probation, with this overcrowding situation as well within the prison system, they're trying to solve the overcrowding crisis in the prison estate, but the prison estate is made up by a massive proportion of recalled prisoners who have been recalled to prison for not committing any further offences, all to do with probation, and probation being too trigger happy with the recall powers, because they have got the power to sign a bit of paper, have you lifted off the streets without even going to courts or the police station, and have you sitting back in prison within 6 hours without even going to court. They can issue a recall. The coppers can come out in force, get you, handcuff you, restrain you if need be, get you back to prison without even going to the police, without even going to a courthouse. That is the powers that probation have got. And like I just said, they use it far too often, and they use it for cases that are non-criminal offences, for not even committing a criminal offence. They haven't even committed an offence. You broke your licence conditions, but the licence conditions that they whack on you when you get released from prison are just outrageous. I got out of a recall and I had more conditions on us than what I did when I got out initially of my IPP. When I first got released of my IPP, the conditions weren't even that bad. I had conditions on us, but I had about 10 licence conditions. They weren't that severe. They didn't seem as bad. But then when you've been recalled and you get released, even though the recall was nothing to do with the index offence, there was no violence involved, when you get released again, I was recalled for a car offence. Spent 40 months in prison on a recall, which wouldn't have even gotten to prison, to be honest, if it wasn't for the IPP. But with being an IPP, I ended up serving another 14 months in prison. Then when I was released, I was put on a GPS tracking tag for 6 months, and I had even more conditions on us. More conditions than when I was first released, believe it or not. For the whole entire time I've been on licence, I could not stop. I couldn't stay out of the house overnight without informing probation. But you had to inform probation a week prior to even thinking about staying out, so they can find out whereabouts you're staying at. Even if it's a hotel with your wife, I will tell you a situation in a minute. Even if you go to a hotel with your wife, you can't just do a spare of the moment. Oh, it's a Thursday, you've got a bit of money off work, I'll treat my wife to a hotel on the Saturday night. Oh no, you can't do that if you're on licence and you've got these conditions on you. If you're IPP, you can't stay out overnight, so they can inform the police or whatever area that you're stopping in. I'll give you a scenario, or a situation rather, since I'm on the subject, talking about probation and the powers that they have. So before I do get into it as well, I will say there is a small proportion of probation officers that are decent. It's the same with everything. It's the same with prisoners. There's a proportion of prisoners that you meet. Not all of them are the same. You meet some decent lads in jail. Some of the best lads I've ever met in my life, who I'm still friends with now. The most loyalist and the best you'll ever meet are the ones that I've met in prison. So, same with probation. You do come across the odd few that are decent, but they let it down for the rest of them. Same as prisoners. Prisoners all get a bad name. They all get tarnished with the same brush because the majority of them are knackers, as we would say up here in the northeast. And it's the same for probation. The majority of them are fucking dogs. You've got the odd few that are decent, but again, the ones that are dogs spoil it for the rest of them. So they all get tarnished with the same brush. So I got a probation officer after about being out for about, when I first got released on my IPP. Got this probation officer called Linda from Durham, where he was constant probation at the time, but they're now all in Durham. Still all comes under Durham probation. And she was an absolute dog. She made my life a misery from the moment I met her. Everything was going well in my life, or as well as could be expected. Had my own business, working, making an honest living, everything going well. She just joined the probation service. She was working for, she told us on the first day I met her that she came from the police, whether she's ex-police or whether she worked in the offices or whatever. She just took an instant dislike for me, and she wanted to recall me from the moment she met us. She just took a dislike to us, and she made me life a fucking living hell. Every time I was coming for probation, I was having sleepless nights leading up to it, thinking what you're going to say this time, what you're going to do. Is she going to patronise us? Because every time I went in, she spoke to us like a little kid, patronised us, what have you been up to, blah, 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 and then just totally belittled us, patronised us, knowing that she had that power over me, as a lot of them do. Because when they've got that power over you, you're not allowed to react back. You're not allowed to say your mind. You're not allowed to say, like, I don't like you, we're not getting on. Bang, she'll issue your recall. That's what you did do eventually. But obviously I did give an excuse for them to do that, obviously, with the car offence. But again, not going too much into it, but that what happened with the car offence, the police had rang her up and said, Mr. Colleen's been involved in this, get him off the streets. She's just went, right, recall him, issued the recall without even hearing my side of the story. But again, that was my own fault because I give an excuse, so I'm not going on about that too much. But this is the power that they have got. And when I said she made me life a living hell, when I was going on probation, she was just questioning us like she was a copper. It was like going in a police interview every meeting I went in. When I got her with the IPPs, it was weekly visits for a year, then every 2 weeks, then every 3 months, then every 3 months, yes, then every 6 months. So I got put on my visits went all the way down to 6 months. She came on the scene, took over my case, put us back on weekly visits and put us back on high risk. I says, why is this? What is going on for you to do this? And her excuse was, I'm new to probation, you're one of my clients, so I want to get to know you, so I'm putting you back on weeklies just so I can get to know you. Then weekly appointments were like police interrogations every week. And like I mentioned, she made my mental health bad. My anxiety, I was feeling down and depressed, all because of her. Never once tried to help you, tried to put you on a better, obviously I was on a better path anyways, but there was no driving force behind probation where they're supposed to help with the rehabilitation and try and, well, make you be a better person. But like I say, I was a better person anyways, and she was just making my mental health absolutely worse. But as they do as well, when probation issue your recall, the spineless fuckers what they are, when you get recalled to prison, they then pass you straight on to another probation officer. So then they don't have to answer to the parole board as to why the recall you go through the rigmarole, because there is steps that they're supposed to take before they recall you. A recall is supposed to be the last steps. You're supposed to get pulled in, given warnings, even putting in an AP, which is an approved premises, which is a hostel. They're supposed to go down them routes before they recall you, but they just issue a recall, then they pass you to someone else so they don't have to answer for it when they come up for your parole hearing. But whilst I'm still on Linda, talking about her and talking about probation, believe it or not, when I got out after my recall, I was relieved that I didn't have her. I had another probation officer, which was a decent one. She actually recommended me release. And she was actually a decent probation officer. She was fully behind us. Obviously, me book and everything I wrote in prison, she says, I hope everything that you've done in prison, you're going to stick to it. Obviously, 4 years later, I'm still sitting here. still smashing it, still doing mint, still doing great. And she could see that potential in us. But then guess what? After about a year or so, you've got a new probation officer. And guess what? It was Linda. Linda wanted me back under her. She wanted to know what I'd been up to, what everything was going like. So again, my mental health was dipping. She rang us up this one day. Me and my wife has been actually I was with my friend on this occasion. We're over the Lake District. I was into a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor activities, obviously boosting your mental health, in a better mindset, doing all proactive and positive things. So I was in the Lake District. I was halfway up Helvellyn. Gets a phone call, probation. I thought I'm going to have to answer it, even if the signal goes off to answer the phone call. And she's talking away. And I says, Linda, says, I'm in the middle. I'm actually halfway up Helvellyn. Started being all cocky and funny. And she turned around and said to us at the end of the phone call, because she was wanting to bring me appointment for probation. And she says, well, the next time you're thinking of climbing a mountain, could you get in touch with us first and let us know? And again, I was just took aback. I just bit me tongue. I didn't bite her, and I just went along with her. Fucking spoiled me day, because she knew I was on the mountain when I said to her, I'm halfway up a mountain, Linda, all buzzing, happy, positive vibes flowing. So she just wanted to dampen my mood. Well, next time you climb a mountain, make sure you tell us beforehand. Can you believe that? So I try to put it at the back of my mind. Obviously, I'm doing something positive. It's hard enough climbing mountains anyway without having that in my fucking mind, blagging my head. So got on with me day and everything, and then the weeks following up, going in for my appointment, and again she was belittling us, she was making us feel anxious, feeling depressed, having sleepless nights before my appointments, thinking I can't be dealing with this. I thought I need to nip this in the bud straight away. I've got to go to the manager. But again, I was thinking, if I go to the manager and say I need to change probation officers, I'm going to get into trouble. I'm going to cause some sort of upset in the office. Are they going to recall us? Are they not going to like us? Why? And all of these things are going through your mind, and only IPPs will comprehend what I'm talking about, and people who's been out on licence for a long time. So I plugged up the courage, rang the manager, and I said, I need to have a word with you. The probation officer that I've got at the moment, we're not seeing eye to eye. It's starting to affect us, and can I please change probation officers? And to my surprise, the manager turned around and said, yes, that's not a bother, Ricky. These things happen. You don't see eye to eye. We'll sort you another probation officer out. So I get another probation officer, and she seemed lovely. She was only a young lass, looked maybe in her 20s, Demi from Durham Probation as well. And I am naming them on here because I can do. I'm not doing anything wrong by doing that. I'm just letting everybody know who these probation officers are. So I got the new probation officer, Demi, had her for about a year. She seemed all right on the surface, and everything was going well. She was sort of giving us little bits of praises when I was going in the office. But again, who was behind everything? Linda was behind it, stirring the pot. She was starting to become funny on my probation appointments every month when I was going in. I was thinking, what is going on here? I'd been out for a couple of years. I had a parole hearing coming up to get my licence discontinued, terminated. So they were doing reports on us. Bearing in mind, Demi had said, Ricky, you're doing excellent. If you keep doing what you're doing, in a year's time, I'll recommend you to come off your licence. Things like this, obviously, you'd stick in your mind, you remember it. So a year goes by, Demi's doing my report, and I said to Demi, will you be recommending us this year, seeing as though, well, I didn't actually say that. At first, I just said, what's your recommendations? She says, I'm recommending you to stay on your licence. I don't want you off it. And I was like, took back. I says, well, why not? I says, you told me last year, if I keep doing what I'm doing, you'll recommend us to come off. I said, I'm doing even better. I'm helping loads of people in the communities. I've been going into a school, talking to the young kids about prison. I've got my own mental health group in my gym, helping people who are suffering with mental health. I've single-handedly saved 6 lives in my area, people that was going to take their own lives. But they've started coming to my group that I set up myself, started opening up and talking. I've given them a copy of my book, got them into my gym, living the best lives in the gym training. So all of this, I'm thinking I'm doing even better. So she turned around and said, I'm not recommending your release because you're working with vulnerable people, i.e. people with mental health problems, and I want to keep you on it to see how you're doing. So I just turned around and said, how can that be right? I says, I'm helping people in my area stopping people from taking their own lives, doing even better than what I was, but you're using that against us and you're keeping us on licence because of that. I just could not believe it, couldn't believe what was happening. So I just said, right, fair enough, that was her recommendations, and obviously went for the parole hearing, and the parole knocked us back because the probation weren't recommending us. So another year goes by, everything's going well. I'm hoping to have I had another hearing coming up. I'm thinking, right, I've been on probation for another year, things are looking even better. What they're recommending this time, and again, believe it or not, I'm not recommending your release because you're still working with vulnerable people in your area and going into schools and teaching kids. I was like, all of this should be going in my favour. And this is another thing they've actually done. I forgot this bit out. When I was coming up, she was doing me reports and everything, and she turned around and said, I want to put more licence conditions on you. Again, I was took back. I was like, she says, we want you to get drug tested every time you come in the office because you're working with kids and vulnerable people. I says, what on earth are you talking about? You want to start drug testing me when I'm living this pro-social life, teaching fitness and everything? I says, to be honest with you, I says, you can't do that. It's not on my licence conditions. The parole board didn't ask for this, so you can't do it. She turned around and says, yes, we know that, but we are going to go out of our way right to the parole board and ask for them to put these conditions on you when I'm coming up for a hearing to get off me parole altogether. Can you believe it? So I got straight onto my solicitor. I thought, I'm not sitting back and taking this. Got onto my solicitor. We challenged this. I had to pay for this, believe it or not. Cost us a lot of money because I'm working. So I had to pay for all this. My solicitors wrote to the parole board, told the parole board, this is unfair. Mr. Clean's doing so well in the community, he's helping so many people. Why are the probation trying to put this on him? In my mind, I'm thinking, if they get these conditions put on me, when I go in for probation and I give a piss test, they're going to totally stitch us up. They're going to give us a positive piss test on purpose, which they can do, and they're going to say, right, recall them. They're going to recall us and ruin everything that I've built up over the last few years. So can you imagine what my mental health's starting to be like at this time? Anxiety, feeling down, thinking, why are they doing this to us? I've done so well out here. I'm helping so many people. Why are you treating us like this? I couldn't believe it. But again, I used my positive fucking mindset. I just thought, right, you need to get through this. Just carry on doing what you're doing. They can't do it. Luckily, my solicitor is bang on, Amy Hossack. Carrington's solicitors, I will name her because she is bang on. She's done loads for us for the IPPs. She challenged it with the parole, and the parole sided with us, which pissed the probation off even more. The parole turned around and said, I feel this is unjust. Mr. Clean's done so well, and he's got a hearing coming up for his licence termination. But they weren't recommending us again. Put the reports in, no recommendations. We want Mr. Clean to stay on his licence. I just thought, how could this be possible? So I kept on doing what I was doing. The parole hearing went ahead on paper, and the parole actually turned round. They couldn't believe it themselves. I got the report back and they said, we want the probation to answer up to this. Why aren't you recommending Mr. Colleen termination of his licence when he's doing so well? And guess what happened? I got a new probation officer. This probation officer didn't want to face the parole board, as they do, absolute cowards. Demi from Durham Probation didn't want to face the parole because she knew she was in the wrong, so she passed us on to someone else so she didn't have to sit on the parole and get interrogated by my solicitor, by myself, and by the parole board. Spineless maggots, exactly what they are. Passed us on to somebody else. But luckily, the new one that I got passed on to was decent. She seemed a bit apprehensive at first because she was new to this probation office. She come from Northumberland, and I was in this office. She was new in this office rather, and luckily I think she stood her ground because she would have been getting pumped from the background by these other two probation officers in the office that had a dislike for us, didn't want to see me doing well, wanted me to be back in prison even though I was doing nothing wrong. They wanted me to have a big downfall because they didn't want praises for everything I've done, going into schools, my mental health group. What they did do was told us to stop it all. I went into probation. The manager actually called us into the office, Melanie, I believe her name was, called us into the office for a meeting. I thought I was coming in to get praised. By God, was I in for a shock. Both the probation officers, the manager and my probation, Demi and Melanie, sat there, and Melanie just interrogated us. I thought I was going to get praised. Like I said, she says, "Can you tell us what you've been doing?" So I'm like that, buzzing with myself. Well, I've been into schools, I've been working with Changing Lives, I've been working with If You Care Share suicide charity, I've got my own mental health group. And she says, "Yes, but you didn't tell us none of this." I said, "Yes, I did. I told Demi, who's sitting there, I told her everything before I even done it, because I knew I couldn't just go ahead and do it without the permission." I says, and all of these organisations that I'm working with actually came to me first. I didn't reach out to them and say, "Can I come and work with you?" They got in touch with me and said, "We've seen your YouTube channel, we've seen you on the Franklin Prison documentary, we want to know, will you come in, talk to the young'uns, or come into Changing Lives, talk to the lads, help improve their mindsets, tell them your story, give them a bit of inspiration." So I'm like, "Of course I will." So I went and done all this. Probation said, "Yes, but you didn't get our permission." So I sat there again, just taking it all in, being calm, because they wanted us to react. They wanted us to react in a violent manner, start shouting on, swearing, saying, "I'm sick of this, blah, blah, blah," whatever. And they would have just said, "Right, you're not working with anybody, you've still got violent tendencies." This is what they wanted. But I sat there, professional, calm, collected, beat them with success. And then they turned around and said, "Right, we want you to stop this." I said, "Stop? You want us to stop helping all these people?" I said, "If I stop that mental health group, my gym, people are going to be at risk of suicide." And she says, "Well, we can't stop that." That was the word she used. "We can't stop that. But what we can do is stop you from doing everything else, whilst we go and tell them. We want to go and see them with a police officer, give them a printout of what you've been to prison for." I says, "They know what I've been to prison for. That was the reason why they got in touch with us. They know that I was in for violence. It was on the Franklin Prison documentary. They got in touch with us because of that. But no, they wanted to go, which was breaching everything. When they went and looked into it, and I got my solicitor on the case, they turned around, changed the mind, said, "Oh, we just want to send them a DBS." I said, "They've got a DBS on us. That was the whole point of it." But they wanted to write a big paragraph about me, which they're not supposed to do, and give it to them with a police officer to try and shut us down. They didn't say, "Come into the probation offices and help us with the offenders in here, or the people out on license. Can you come in and help us do a bit work with them to try and put them in a better mindset?" Oh no, they wanted to shut me down. But again, I kept me calm, done everything right, got on with my solicitor. Everything was done properly, and again, they couldn't do anything. So I've killed them with the success. But now, my license has been terminated by the parole board because my new probation officer recommended us to come off, which all credit to her as well. But she turned around when I thanked her, she said, "No need to thank us." She says, "Because it's all your hard work, which I've seen." And she actually recommended me release. My license was terminated, and now I can speak me mind. All of them probationers still watching me videos, and this is another thing that they didn't like. They didn't like that I just went and set my YouTube channel up, because I knew if I went to them and asked for permission, they wouldn't do it. Excuse me. They would have just said no straight away. So I just set my YouTube channel up, and they couldn't say anything about it. It's freedom of speech, as long as I don't say certain things. But if I'd made this video speaking about them, calling them maggots, calling them out, telling them exactly how I feel about them and what they've done to me and everybody else who's on probation suffering at the hands of them, all the thousands that they've recalled, unjust recalls because they didn't get on with somebody, someone speaking their mind in the office, they don't like it, they'll make something up. Believe it or not, this is a reason for recall. Bad behaviour. Bad behaviour can come under a range of different things. You can go into that office, you might be suffering that day, you might have had a bereavement or something, you're in a bad mood, but you haven't told probation about it, and they're giving you a bit of grief and you've reacted, and they've just said, right, recall. because they don't like you. You can get recalled to prison for missing or going to probation an hour late. If you've missed your appointment, a lot of people go to probation on the bus. They need bus passes. They haven't got anything. They're late for the appointments because there's been a breakdown or whatever. They haven't got money on the phone to tell probation that they'll be late. Probation just goes, right, we've been waiting for this. Recall, late for your appointment. You're sitting in prison for years on end, waiting for another hearing. And these are the situations that people find themselves in with probation. But they forget once you're in prison, you're back in a violent environment and they expect you to act squeaky clean. You get chucked in there with a bunch of wolves, bunch of predators, and people are trying to antagonize you, trying to cause ruction, cause a fight or whatever. You react in a violent manner, or you shout back or whatever, or the screws are giving you grief. You tell them to fuck off or whatever. This all gets rid up. You come for parole, the probation, another excuse. We're not recommending you to come out because you're still acting in you're still acting in an aggressive manner. And these are the situations that people are finding themselves in. And a quarter of the prison population, I believe, is on a recall. If all of these people that were on recalls were let back out because they haven't committed any further offences, it's all, like I've just mentioned, recalls like that, then that will ease the prison overcrowding. And more situations, an IPP prisoner, believe it or not, was suffering with his mental health. He went to the doctors to ask for help. They give him help, they put him on medication. But when he came up for his yearly review through probation thought, right, we're going to ask for his doctor's notes to see if anything's going on. They got his doctor's notes and they seen that he'd been there asking for help because he was suffering with anxiety and depression. Guess what? Recalled straight back to prison for the public's safety. Put him at high risk of harm to the public because he's suffering with anxiety and depression. How can that be fair? This man was suffering because of the IPP. He was shitting himself, didn't want to go back to prison. He's never even he's not involved in anything, but because he's on IPP, lifelong license, he's scared of prison. And the mental health was getting too much, so he went and asked for help from the doctors. And what did the probation do? Put him in the place that he was scared of. And he's in there, cutting up on suicide watch because probation's put him in there. They didn't give him any help. Probation have got death on their hands. There's multiple people killed themselves in fear of recall. There's multiple people being recalled to prison on IPP, couldn't handle it no more and killed themselves. And probation haven't had an answer to this. Probation are executioners. They are the worst of the worst. Judges and magistrates have got the power to sentence you. So it should be people like that who have the power to recall you. Some probation officers got the power to put you back in prison and keep you in there for years. More powers than what the magistrates and fucking judges have got. It's absolutely outrageous what is going on, what people don't know about. And that's why I'm coming on and doing this video and doing it for the ones still out there suffering on IPP license. People that are out on license as well. I mean, there's people who have had, say, a 10-year sentence. They do 5 years in prison, 5 years on license. Probation don't like them, don't want them back out, recall them, and they have to serve the full 10 years. They're serving the full 10 years for not even committing a further offence, down to bad behaviour. Or they can make up intelligence. There's police intelligence on you, so we want to recall you for the public's safety, which is absolutely diabolical. And some IPPs have been in for 2 and 3 years waiting to get back out when there's been no police interviews, there's been no court appearances, nothing like that. But it's all to do with intelligence or the probation not liking you. And if you still live in the same area that your crime was committed in, and your family lives there, and you're living in a rough neighbourhood or a rough area, you've got no chance. They're going to be on your back constantly, and it is an absolute nightmare. And I feel sorry for the people still on it. Because like you'll know of what I've just told you there, even though I'm out here living a fucking crime-free life, my head and my mental health was deteriorating, all down to probation. I was doing the best I've ever done in my whole entire life out here, doing great, loving being out here free with me family, me wife, me kids, me business, helping people less fortunate than me, giving me satisfaction helping people at risk of suicide, and then you've got them trying to shut me down and making me feel like that. But now I'm free, I can speak my mind, I can talk about the maggots. I won't go on loads of videos talking about this continuously because it's negative and I don't want any of that negative shit in my life, but I wanted to offload and do it for the ones that are still out there on license and the ones in prison that are due out on IPP or any sort of sentence, letting them all know what they're actually in for when they get out. You'd think when you get released, your sentence is done. Your sentence continues when you're out here on license. And another, I forgot to mention it earlier on in the video when I was talking about, for them 4 years I've been back out, I couldn't stay out overnight. Say you go to your friend's house, out of the area, you have a drink or whatever, not that I'm drinking at the moment, but if you're at a friend's house party with family or whatever, and you can't get a lift back, you can't get a taxi, it's 12 o'clock at night, there's no taxis going, you're tired, you've been told to stop there, it's a family member's house. If you sleep in that house and don't go back to your own house and you've stopped out overnight, you are breaking your conditions and you can be recalled to prison. And if you've got a cunt of a probation officer, they will be waiting for an excuse like this to issue a recall. But I rang Linda up one time years ago to tell her that me and my wife was celebrating our anniversary. We're going to a hotel. It was a Sandman hotel through Newcastle. We were staying there on the Thursday actually, and I rang up the week before. Sorry, I'm getting the days mixed up. I rang up the week before to inform Linda that I would be going to a hotel with my wife to celebrate our anniversary. She wasn't in the office, she was off sick, so I left a message. I spoke with some senior member in the probation service, told them, and they said that'll be fine. So I went ahead with my wife on the Thursday night. We had a good drink to celebrate. This was years ago. And the next morning, we're both rough, just enjoying it. Had a breakfast, not lying in bed, just enjoying the day. Phone starts ringing, probation. I was like, yeah. So I've answered, I was like, hello, Rick, it's Linda from probation. Where you're at? Well, I'm in a hotel, I'm with my wife, we've just celebrated our anniversary. Well, you didn't tell me about this. I said, I know it, because you've been off on sick. I told the other probation officers, you're supposed to tell me. And she was shouting down the phone at me, like a little boy, screaming down the phone at us, saying, you're supposed to inform me, so I can inform Northumbria Police that you're coming into their area. You're a dangerous offender. You're high risk, even though I was medium. I'm supposed to tell Northumbria Police that you've come into their jurisdiction. She says, next time, give us plenty of notice. But obviously, I'd had a drink the night before, and I'm like that on the phone, just about to say, fuck you. And my wife was like that, please, she's going like that, don't react. And I just went along with that. I said, all right, no bother. Put the phone down, spoilt the day. I was absolutely raging. I was that close to saying, fuck you, you horrible bastard. That's what I wanted to do. But that would have been the perfect excuse for her of acting in a violent manner. She would have had the police, because she worked in the police force, she would have had the police on speed dial. Get to the Sandman Hotel, get him, recall him back to prison. That is what you've got to put up with, believe it or not. Imagine being treated like that when you haven't even committed no violent offences. You've been out on licence for fucking 8 years or whatever, no violence, no crimes or nothing, and you're getting treated like that. But I just wanted to come on. I know I've been on quite a while there. As you can tell, I've offloaded, getting it up. It's been a long time coming, and there is other people who told us to do this video because it's the same scenario for them. I will speak about one more person before I wrap it up because I need to get off now. But an IPP out here in the community, doing brilliant for himself, been out over 10 years. He was a personal trainer like myself, done really well for himself. He'd had problems with alcohol in the past, and obviously probation were keeping an eye on him, and he started drinking again. Things weren't going well, so probation put him in a hostel, and the hostel said he came in one night drunk. Probation is saying, right, we're recalling you. He's took off this day, went and got it, where he was living in a tent, and he was saying to the probation, he says, if you're issuing me a recall back to prison, I can't handle this, you should be helping us. I've went back on the drink, I've had a few drinks, I've come in drunk, you're issuing me recall. And he turned around and said, if you're issuing my recall back to prison, you will be looking for a dead body, because there's no way I'm going back to prison. And she got on the phone to the police, issued his recall, didn't issue a missing person or vulnerable. She said, right, police, soon as you see him, recall him to prison. It then went into a few days. The recall was then issued into a missing person, a vulnerable person, because of what he said. She couldn't get in touch with him. He wasn't responding to any family members. What happened? They found him dead. He killed himself. He'd been out of prison over 10 years. No crimes, no nothing. Shouldn't have even been on licence. But because of that probation, he was in fear of going back to prison. Didn't want to live that life no more. Killed himself. That was the only way he could see out. How is that just? That probation officer should have been put in prison herself for what she done to that fucking poor lad. Horrible situations like this that's happening all the time, and they're getting away with it. They shouldn't have the power of recall. It should go through a parole system. The parole have got the power to release you. It should be up to the parole to recall you. Not dogs like that sitting behind the office table that's took offence, don't like you, and they don't want you on the street, so they're issuing you recall back to prison for not even committing a criminal offence. And on that note, people, I will leave it there because I've went on it quite a bit. Hopefully, you're still watching up to this point, and if you are, remember to comment, hit that like button, people, because not a lot of people are, and the algorithm's not getting up. But if you are enjoying it, hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But I've got plenty more videos coming up, people. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day, and fuck probation.